ดีค่ะ
And welcome to Good Morning with Thai PBS World. I'm Nazanak.
And I'm Hatay Teshekitiranan, and welcome to the program. Later on, we have an exclusive interview with the Australian ambassador to Thailand in the segment, so don't go anywhere. But we'll kickstart the program with COVID-19 stories. Although we've seen fewer daily infections in the past few days, it has been confirmed that the Delta variant has been found in all provinces of Thailand. And meanwhile, 4 subvariants of the Delta strain have also been found in the country. As we reported earlier, the Delta variant was found in all except one province in Thailand, which is Suphan Buri. But as the strain has now been found in the province as well, we can also say that it's now all over the country. And another noteworthy update is that 4 subvariants of the fast-spreading Delta strain have been found in samples sent to the Centre of Medical Genomics at Mahidol University for examination. But the chief of the center assured the public that there is no cause for panic at the moment, as infections by the 4 subvariants are still limited and there's very little information about their severity. The subvariants found in Thailand are AY4, AY6, AY10 and AY12. 9 cases were found with the AY4 strain since June. 4 in Pathum Thani, 1 each in Buriram, Kamphaeng Phet, Chiang Mai, Samut Prakan, and Chonburi. And 1 case in Bangkok was found with AY6 strain in July, while another was found with AY10 strain also last month. And 3 cases were found with AY12 strain since July, 2 in Surat Thani and 1 in Bangkok. So this chief of the center also said the Delta variant has mutated into 27 subvariants around the world, and they are expected to continue to increase.
And according to Director General of the Medical Sciences Department, Dr. Supkit Sirilak, these 4 Delta subvariants have already been found in England, the United States, Denmark, Spain, and France. And Thai cases are being found in some countries because there has been more screening and mutations occurring every day. So Dr. Supkit said if one day there is a Thai subvariant, don't panic, because that means we are honest and reporting the truth.
And with all the subvariants like this only goes to show how the virus keeps mutating and that the vaccine makers are playing catch up with them, since we need to undergo further tests. If the vaccines also, including the new ones, can really be efficient against all the new mutations. So hopefully it's not going to take too long for that to see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. So with that, we still need to wear our face masks and keep distance from others. And even if we're fully vaccinated, because there are still many new variants coming up and we still need to be very careful of as well. And still on the COVID-19 situation in Thailand, the number of new deaths are increasing and it remains really high despite the lower numbers of new infections. And it has been reported that most of the COVID-19 fatalities are those who are already suffering from high blood pressure. So the Disease Control Department revealed that people suffering from high blood pressure accounts for most of the deaths from coronavirus infections compared to those with other underlying health conditions. So according to the medical reports, 17% of COVID patients who suffer from high blood pressure are likely to develop abnormal heartbeats, 7% of infection of heart muscles, and 9% of blood circulation failure, which will subsequently lead to heart failure. The department's Deputy Director General, Dr. Prisha Prempri, said that this group of vulnerable people needs to be vaccinated so that they will have sufficient immunity to protect them from severe illness or death in case they are infected with the coronavirus. He also said that people with high blood pressure can still be vaccinated. Meanwhile, the director of the Non-Communicable Disease Division said that over 6 million people who have high blood pressure problems across the country, except for Bangkok, have registered for treatment at state-operated health facilities, including 2.4 million who are unable to control their blood pressure to a normal level. And those who cannot control their blood pressure are at risk of developing several complications such as stroke, heart diseases, kidney failure, or paralysis. And if they are infected with COVID-19, their conditions will be more serious than the other groups of people who have no blood pressure problems.
And a few suggestions have been made for those having high blood pressure problems. For example, you should be taking medication as recommended by your doctors on a regular basis, and also go see your doctors as per appointments. Refrain from eating sweet, oily, or salty food and avoid condiments. And you're supposed to be also eating more fruits and vegetables, avoid alcohol and cigarettes. Meanwhile, regular exercise of at least 30 minutes a day to help the functioning of the heart is also recommended. And so it is also advised that these people with high blood pressure should have enough sleep before their vaccination appointments as well. And actually, with all these suggestions, this actually would apply to all of us as well.
Exactly. And also those who are on blood clot dissolving medication must also tell the medics at the vaccination site to prevent any of the undesirable side effects. And most importantly, you just mentioned about exercise, but it is recommended that no exercise 2 to 4 hours after the vaccination.
Definitely. It doesn't hurt to keep also the healthy regimen for everyone as well.
Right.
So now on to a rather more positive story amid the pandemic. A lot of people have lost their jobs. Unfortunately, many of them would be sad and are not sure about their future. But not for this man who transformed himself into a superhero to attract customers at a local market. So let's find out more in this report by Kun Gitipachin Sukjit.
During the surge in the numbers of infections and deaths from COVID-19 in Thailand, many started to feel depressed and anxious, but not this man. Montri Potong, a 36-year-old Thai man who lives in Suphan Buri province, is enjoying his job selling fresh vegetables while wearing a superhero costume, acting like Spider-Man to attract customers at the market. Before becoming unemployed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Montri was working as an entertainer at events and restaurants, wearing superhero costumes and driving customers back and forth between the restaurant and their homes between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. When the restaurants in the COVID-19 dark rate provinces had to close as part of the disease control measures in the province, he adapted to survive. Montri takes advantage of superhero costumes he already owns by wearing them while working at his new job as a fresh vegetable vendor to attract customers at the market in Suphan Buri. It's not only the customers who are entertained by him. Many vendors in the market also enjoy this good vibe during these dark days of COVID-19 thanks to his creative performances. Recently, there has been new hope that lockdown measures in the hardest hit provinces can be eased as the rate of new COVID-19 infections in Bangkok and its suburbs is slowing down, according to the CCSA. The number of people suffering from anxiety, however, has not yet decreased. During a crisis like COVID-19, learning to cope with stress in a healthy way will make you, the people you care about, and those around you more resilient, as Montri is proving.
Well, normally there's nothing better than a superhero saving their day, but this is probably even better than that, with people helping each other out and bring smiles back to the situation, which is sorely needed.
Well, I'm pretty sure that many children who like superheroes to begin with will definitely like this one. And
Definitely.
now let's take a look at all the other interesting stories in our daily roundup. Anti-government protest leader Loknath, who was injured in the eye during one of the protests and was said to become half-blind, has accepted a challenge by Palang Pracharat MP Sirat Jenjaka to prove that he was really blinded by a tear gas canister. The MP previously agreed to pay 1 million baht if his blindness was real, but it has been reported that the MP has changed his mind because he has a source that told him that Loknath is not blind.
And the Corrections Department has also issued a statement that prominent protest leader Parichiwarak, also known as Penguin, who is being treated for COVID-19 at a correctional hospital, is being well taken care of, amid concerns and calls, especially by his mother, to transfer him to somewhere else, like Thammasat University Hospital. And Penguin's condition is still okay, according to the department, which is assuring the public that there is no cause for concern. And speaking of protesters, police have also issued summons for 20 minors for the recent protests as well.
Meanwhile, 15 hairdresser associations will be submitting a letter to House Speaker Chun Lik-pai this morning, demanding the Prime Minister to allow the reopening of hair salons and allocate COVID-19 vaccines for all hairdressers. At the same time, they will be offering free haircuts at Suan Luang Ramannath Park. An association of Thai beauticians and hairstylists revealed that up to 153,000 hairdressers and related staff in 29 dark red zone provinces are affected by the closure, losing up to 1.9 billion baht per month of revenue. And I think we're not the only ones waiting for hair salons to reopen, because when there is a lockdown, they are among the first that were ordered to close. But the hairdressers believe that they should be allowed to reopen because there hasn't been a COVID infection coming from salons at all.
Exactly. And speaking of also haircut, I'm also waiting for one. And of course, like many other people, a massage, of course. But when we are actually talking about being inconvenienced by lack of these services, it's also important to be reminded that this partial lockdown has put many businesses and lives at stake. So be sure to support them in the ways that we can.
Exactly.
And now it is time for our weekly exclusive interview with ambassadors to Thailand. And in today's edition of The Ambassador, I talk to His Excellency Allan McKinnon, Ambassador of Australia to Thailand, about his life here, the COVID-19 situation in Australia, and what projects Australia has been working on with and in Thailand.
Arriving in Thailand in January 2019, Ambassador Allan McKinnon was able to enjoy some normality during his first year before COVID hit.
Well, I can still remember a time when restaurants were open in Bangkok and you were able to travel freely. So things have obviously changed a lot. Let's say the first year I was getting my feet underneath the table, getting accustomed to the job, so I stayed mainly in Bangkok. I was looking forward to doing a lot of travel and experiencing Thailand in my second and third years, but that hasn't really happened. Even with work and just for a very short time, I've managed to go to places like Kanchanaburi, Hellfire Pass, which is a military site of immense significance to Australians. I've been to Phuket as well, a beautiful place, but one of the things that struck me most about Phuket was how depressed the economy was. Chiang Mai is an old favourite. I first came to Thailand in about 1985 and went to Chiang Mai, Sukhothai, and I caught trains around to Phitsanulok, Lopburi, different places. I've seen maybe 5% of what I want to see in Thailand. So if we can get COVID under control, that's my ambition over the next year, to go everywhere.
With 3 children all in Australia, the ambassador said being apart from them is one of the difficulties he faces. He can speak Thai as he learned it at university, and having previously been posted to Tokyo, he also speaks Japanese.
The strength of Japan is that great big middle class, which if the government can say this is the direction we're going, they pull together and they're incredibly powerful. In Thailand, I found that people are more individualistic, so maybe a bit more like Australian.
As for bilateral relations, there has been a lot of cooperation in border protection and the fight against trafficking, while defense and trade relationships remain close.
Thailand and Australia have what I call a top 10 relationship. Probably one element that we could strengthen is the political involvement. I think it's too long since we've had a Prime Minister come here for a strictly bilateral visit. The last Prime Minister was, I think, John Howard, 23 years ago or so. And when we consider the importance of this relationship, I'd like to encourage more political involvement. Next year with APEC might be a good opportunity.
The Thai and Australian Prime Ministers spoke last week about enhanced bilateral cooperation under the strategic partnership signed in November last year. This includes COVID-19 vaccine assistance.
It'll give much more structure and political drive to our whole relationship, and so we'll look for cooperation on things like agriculture, medical cooperation. Thailand's medical system has got a justifiably strong reputation across the world. Maybe we could do some more on information sharing between our militaries, and so there's potential even in a strong and well-established relationship to do even more. We have committed $100 million to give vaccines to countries in the region. So there will certainly be more cooperation there. And the cooperation may well even be at the technical and the production level, because Thailand has real expertise in this area, and Australia has one of the world's biggest plasma and vaccine companies in a company called CSL. So I'm not saying that Australia is going to pop up here next month and say here's 4 million Australian vaccines, but I am saying there will be developments in this field and closer cooperation.
As Australia is also in need of vaccines amid the lockdown extension in Sydney, as the Delta variant wreaks havoc, Australians in Thailand will have to wait for the Thai government's rollout or for private vaccinations.
It's a difficult situation at the moment. We were very successful for a long time in keeping COVID under control. At the moment, we have a real challenge, but we've got very strong track and trace, and governments are taking quite strong measures. We're in similar lockdowns at the moment to what Thailand is. Well, one of the things we've been pressuring Thailand on is to make sure that all foreigners are treated the same as Thais. I mean, of course it doesn't make sense to have to vaccinate Thai people but not all the foreigners. That doesn't make you safe either. And I can say that Thailand is now moving towards that situation.
And back in February, when the pandemic was still at a less serious stage, the embassy hosted a rare premiere of a documentary on His Majesty King Rama X's time in Australia, with several ambassadors, high-level Thai officials, and their Majesties the King and Queen present.
The idea behind it was we found some old footage of His Majesty at Dun Troon, which is Australia's premier military academy. But we also searched for other footage, and his father, King Bhumibol, was there in about 1962, and at that stage, at a state dinner, His Majesty said, "Don't think of Thailand as Far East, think of us as near North." So he was there with Queen Sirikit, and that view was quite striking at that time. Following that time, of course, Princesses Sirindorn and Chulabhorn have been there a number of times. So when we looked at all of that, we thought, this is a story about the Chakri dynasty's engagement with Australia. His Majesty was very pleased to receive it. And when he came here, he was very relaxed. There was almost no ceremonial guards here. It was like a family film night almost. He was pointing at some of the photographs we had, photographic exhibitions, and remembering some of his friends there. As he said, he feels like this is like he is home a little bit.
His Excellency also highlighted the outstanding universities in Australia because he would like to see more Thai students studying there.
We have universities that are in the top 100 in the world, any of them. Easy society to live in, just not now while COVID is on is the problem. So I'm holding out this promise for next year.
Hatai Deshikitiranan reporting for Thai PBS World.
And that was our second installment of The Ambassador. It was such a pleasure, Kunat, once again to also have an honor to talk to His Excellency. He also showed me around his gorgeous residence decorated with Aborigines arts, as you can see from the footage. And of course, I got another treat as well, Kunat, really yummy Anzac cookies.
Oh, I wish I was there again. And there are so many things that Australia is known for. And speaking of universities, actually a lot of Thai students went to Australia for that. And I used to study there as well. And I would say that Australia is definitely a great country. And they're really open-minded to people of different cultures as well.
Exactly. This is also what I found when I was studying in Australia as well. A multicultural society, a great experience overall.
Definitely.
And with that, we wrap up this edition of Thai PBS World. So be sure to catch us every weekday at 7:30 a.m. and follow our social media and website, www.thaipbsworld.com, for the top stories, explainers, and analyses.
Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ